Welcome to Harrowing Tales, your one-stop horror podcast that covers all things paranormal, spooky, and strange. Delving into the fictional and factual, we are your hosts. I'm Cal, and I'm joined by Brent.
Hi, today we're going to be talking about the moving statues of Ireland, a phenomenon that occurred during the summer of 1985, which is
Okay.
very interesting. It's not really a harrowing tale, it's just a very interesting phenomenon. It's pretty cool.
It sounds
That's it.
spooky. Like, it's weeping angel type stuff. Like, that's just freaky to me. My biggest fear is, like, dolls and statues and mannequins and stuff. That's the thing I'm scared of the most. So this could be my kryptonite.
Right. It's less okay. Some of the accounts they do say that they're frightened and they're spooked, but it's more of like it is like a highly religious thing. It's not like the statues are moving in a frightening way. It's just more frightening that the things are occurring. And what makes it so interesting is the amount of people that saw this happening.
Okay.
So
How many people?
Well, quite a few accounts, but so it has been recorded that there have been occurrences at over 30 locations around the country. This is during one summer. This is during one summer that there are over 30 locations around Ireland that had moving statues or apparitions or visions or whisperings or statues bleeding. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is the summer of 1985, by the way. Yeah,
1985. Okay. So
yeah,
not that long ago. I mean, still quite a while, but like not like crazy long ago.
yeah. And I think the fact that it wasn't that long ago is why we've got so much about it. We've got like there's lots of accounts. There's lots of like it was like televised. It was a big deal. So one of the first sightings was in Bellin Special Grotto. I'm going to butcher all of the names of the places, by the way.
Okay. It's alright.
And this is in the start of July, or in July, of the Virgin Mary moving spontaneously, and then many more occurrences after that. So it was one occurrence, and then after that, just heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps, which is cool, which is crazy.
This is in
And
Ireland, isn't it?
yes, in Ireland, and like at that location where that Virgin Mary spontaneously moved, up to 100,000 people have gathered to see if they would see the statue move themselves. They would all turn up in massive crowds to try and see if they could see the statue move itself. And this is including like people coming and doing loads of prayers, lots of it was actually a lot of controversy around also people turning up and sort of making money out of it, which is kind of an interesting thing to like think. But like, to be fair, people moving across the country, 100,000 people, they're gonna need food. They're gonna need, they're gonna need lots of things. So it is understandably how money could come into play here.
Yeah, I mean, in most instances where there's something like this, where there's a phenomenon or a cryptid sighting or something like that, usually there is some sort of tourism around it or some money to be made off it. I know it for at least for like quite big ones like Bigfoot or for like Mothman or something. This doesn't really come into that like realm of things because it's not really a cryptid. But I can imagine why like there would be money
Well, look
made
at
off of
Roswell,
it.
like the
Yeah.
amounts of stuff that happens in Roswell. But the thing is, this is just for one summer. This doesn't really, it doesn't happen past this point. It sort of dies down once it heads into like autumn, and it really died out. Like it's really just at one point in time there was so many like occurrences and part of this, which makes it really interesting. It's always like a fever, like just a lot of just it's spreading around. It was pretty crazy.
Ooh. It sounds
Yeah.
really cool. Like, I've never heard of this before you have brought it up. It's
Well,
not
I
something
just
that I,
stumbled upon
I
it.
know.
I honestly did not know that this was a thing, and I just stumbled upon it. But I think I kind of it sounded really familiar. I must have like seen it somewhere before.
Mm.
But yeah, finding out about this was really interesting, and people can go do their own research, of course. But we're just doing a quick like go through of this. But there's lots of like news reportings, lots of sightings of these statues. So the statues are more like just sort of like little statues of the Virgin Mary, just at a little altar of sorts. And then people will say they see the hand move, or they'll say they see like the face turn a little bit, stuff like that. Like a lot of the accounts are just slight movements, but some are like we saw them just look like a person all of a sudden, like
Oh,
a flesh and blood person, and just looking and and some are also like apparitions. Like they'll see them. It's
okay.
not part of the statues. It's they'll see the Virgin Mary as their own thing, or they'll see this. It's there was lots and lots of things that happened.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
how big are these statues, by the way? Are they like human sized? Or are they like
a
tiny?
lot of them are just like quite small statues. Uh, I'd say like a child size, but it's not like
Child
they're the
size.
proportions of a child. They're just a small statue. They're
Okay.
not they're not they're not massive things.
Right.
The statues are quite small. Yeah.
Yeah. Because as soon as
Um,
you say moving statues, I obviously am thinking of the obvious, and I'm thinking like weeping angels, pretty much. So if it's like
right.
smaller, it kind of gives like, oh yeah, okay, so this is like a bit different. These are smaller statues moving, just
Well,
so
it's
I have
all
a mental image.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you picture the Virgin Mary,
Yeah.
they're just sort of like a small religious statue. People have seen movements, and that's majority of the accounts. Some of them are a lot more interesting, a lot more
Okay.
like the apparitions. So one of the accounts, like one of the most famous accounts of these, is these. There was four teenage girls from Cullinston Coast, Sligo, that say the Virgin Mary appeared to them in the sky, which is awesome. That's great.
It's
That's
flying.
that because it's not part of the statues. It's not like they saw a slight hand of the statues, but this also could have been. I guess we'll talk about the skepticism around this later, but
Mm.
how a lot of this um, phenomenon could have just been brought about because of one person seeing it. It's spreading to the next person. It's spreading to the next person, and it's in people's heads. They start seeing it everywhere,
Yeah.
um, which is a common thing. That's a lot of like to do with like Roswell. It's got to do with a lot of
Pretty much
accounts. Just
everything. Everything when it
yeah,
comes to
a
accounts,
lot
like
of
you see
people put
one
that down
person
to
and
the
then
blame
yeah.
of mass gatherings for things.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, but this is what they had to say. This is what one of them had to say.
Okay.
I've just got the. This is from a news report of the time of an interview that they had with one of the girls. I looked up in the sky and I seen Our Lady and burned up beside her and started one side of her head. I started to scream and panic. I touched Connie was beside me, and I touched her. And then Colleen looked up and she'd seen her lady and burned up beside her, and Collie could see her face and she screamed to have a sorrowful looking face, and Colleen turned around and she was really scared of me because she thought Our Lady had sent something through me that would harm her. So Connie ran to her sister Patricia, and then Mary ran to her. So three of them were together on the road, and I was on my own, and I was screaming for three girls not to go. Then Patricia came over to me, and she tried to pull me from the road, and she said, as if I was stuck to the road, and that frozen, I couldn't move, and I felt something going through your body, just looked really frightening, like an outline of a lady in the sky. My mother came out and seen a lower light around the four of us, like we were shining, but we didn't know that.
A lot of
Yeah,
touching and screaming.
Yeah, it's very interesting how all of these tales, a lot of these, I probably wouldn't have talked about the moving statues of Ireland if there wasn't so much fear around the apparitions. It's just very interesting that so many of these, a lot of people are scared. You know?
Yeah, and considering that it's supposed to be the Virgin Mary, I was gonna consider that most people would be like, "Oh my God, that's so like, especially if they are religious people, they would probably be quite, feel quite blessed to see it." So I'm quite
I think a lot of the
surprised
time
at how
people are
many
blessed
people are scared.
after, once they actually accept it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess like you'd be like frightened if you did see someone flying through the sky. I mean, the first
But
thing
this
you would be
isn't
like,
just a normal person you see flying through the sky. It's
this is,
like a it's interesting what she said
mm,
about
like an
she was
angel essentially.
she was burned up into the sky with a
Oh,
sorrowful looking face. It's interesting.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the fact that her friend was scared of her, that
Oh, yeah,
that something had passed through her that would harm like them, that's very interesting that you'd think that. It's
yeah.
yeah.
I guess so. Like if you see something pass through your friend and you're like, oh well, yeah, fair enough.
Well, it didn't pass through them. It just appeared in the sky. Well,
Right.
that's the thing. Like, why was their friend afraid of them? I don't get why that is. It's
Yeah, that's
interesting
true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Maybe
three
just
friends
because they
ran
brought
off.
the attention to
Yeah.
the Virgin Mary in the sky.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the three friends ditched the original person. I
Yeah.
just gapped it and like left her to her own devices, and then
Pretty
she ran
much.
off
Yeah.
after them. That's kind of like
Well,
dumb. That's not cool.
they're teenagers and they're scared. Like, I think
Yeah,
it's
I
an
guess
instant
so.
reaction sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Still though, you gotta
Um.
stick together with your homies. But like, okay,
Yeah.
I get it. I get
But
it. I
a
get
lot
it.
of these accounts, there's a lot of being blessed and also having fear at the same time. And I think it's just overwhelming. That must be what brings the fear on.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, seeing the statue move, that's not supposed to move. And now it's moved. It's interesting. But I love one of the accounts where that the statue was no longer a statue, but it looked like a person. Like it looked like the Virgin Mary was just standing there, and they were the ones to see that.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one. They just turned to face them and look at them. And the bleeding statues, that's been a thing not just here though. That's another thing you hear about sometimes, statues bleeding.
I
Like,
have heard of that as well, like
yes.
statues bleeding. That's freaky, man.
It
That's
is
scary.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the skepticism around this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of reactions. This is a lot of reactions around people at the time and also after the fact as well. A lot of the skepticism around this. So the Catholic Church itself remains skeptical that these sightings were true, and a bishop declared the whole phenomenon an illusion.
Oh.
Which is interesting that the Catholic Church won't even acknowledge this, that the statues move or the apparitions are actually real.
Hmm.
Or they remain skeptical at least. And one bishop's like, nah, it's an all illusion.
That's yeah. I mean, that's a hell of a thing to declare if you haven't also
Well, they just
experienced it
remained
as
on the
well. Like,
fence. So the Catholic
yeah.
Church just remains on the fence, and then the bishop is like, nah, it's an illusion.
Right. Okay.
Which I mean is fair. I think a lot of there was another interview I was watching where it was they didn't want the religion to become almost like a joke. Completely understandable.
Yeah, that's
some
pretty
because it
fair. Yeah.
yeah it's taking it out of the like taking it out, just making it more like a theatrical joke. It's yeah. I
Yeah.
understand why they wouldn't want to, even if they did believe it. Even if they did believe it, I don't. I understand why they wouldn't want to acknowledge it or
Yeah.
kind of make it, because it's not. They can't. They don't have any recordings of this happening apart from eyewitnesses, which can totally be faked. They can't rely on that as proof unless they get a bishop to actually look. Could you trust the word? I don't know if they'd even trust the word of a bishop seeing it themselves and acknowledging it themselves. You know,
I think
I
it's
don't
just
know
because
if
it's one person. You can't really. It's easy to be skeptical, I guess.
exactly.
You know,
Imagine if
skeptical until
they
proven
acknowledged
wrong.
it to be, oh, this is proof, and
Mm.
then that whoever says it, oh, I was actually making it up. Then what?
Yeah.
Then what are they going to do? It's completely understandable as to why
I mean, yeah.
they wouldn't, even
You're
if
also in
they.
a position of like this is a church where people come to pray. You don't want people like a safe place for people. You don't want people to
Yeah,
be scared of going there as well, or going to religious places because they're scared of something being there, whether it be malicious or otherwise. You don't
right.
want to scare people off. Like, don't want people to be afraid in a safe place. Is also kind of
Yeah, I
could be
guess
looked at
so.
that way as well.
Yeah. Another group were a team of psychologists which recorded 31 apparition sightings, and they drew the conclusion that the visions were just optical illusions as a result at staring at the statues in the evening twilight. So there was an effect, I forgot what the name of it was called, but it's because the light changing and you're staring at an object for so long, it appears that it's moving.
Right. Kind of
Yeah.
like if you stare at your face for too long, that sort of
Yeah,
thing. That's
I guess
that's called
so.
something as well.
But the light, how a light hits an object could make it appear as if it's moving. I can understand that because a lot of these accounts are also they're not mid. Usually none of these accounts are midday, right? And that's for a lot of things. Like you never have, no one spots Bigfoot during the middle of the day. You know, if anyone has an account of that, actually, get in touch. We'd like to hear it.
I think people have actually seen Bigfoot in the middle of the day. or that's when they've tried to capture infinite. But for most of those sorts of things, it is usually at night. I think it's a bit,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, at least I know for Mothman, everything was at night. All of the accounts, I'm pretty sure,
Right.
were recorded at
Well,
night.
those four teenagers, it was apparently it was pitch black. Like it was pitch black, and then they saw like this light in the sky, and it was the Virgin Mary appearing to them, which makes it very. I guess it makes it very clear that there would have been something if they saw a big light. You know, it wouldn't have just been this some reflection of the sun or something like that. You know,
Right. It's called visual fixation, by the way. When you
right?
stare at an object for so long that it shows like small fluctuations in the object, making the object move. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, object fluctuation. So if you stare at an object for too long, it is proven that it can move. It can seem as if it is moving. But yeah, having that many people though, and saying that is
100,000 people gathered at the one site. That's one site. So you also have the other locations around the country that people would have also gathered to.
yeah.
That's Spittle, by the way. That's the first sighting of the statue moving. The Spittle grotto.
That's a lot of
Yeah,
people.
that's a lot of people, and I'm sure not all of them were from Ireland. I'm sure people journeyed there. But another part of the skepticism is that it was put down to the timing of it. So there was a lot of existential angst from the Cold War, and there's a lot of social stress in Ireland at the time, as well as everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that it gets a lot of. It's a lot of the blame that you usually get for flying saucer phenomenon and stuff is put down to the same sort of people being stressed, and it just that is what caused so many
Like
people
mass
to.
hysteria. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not hysteria. It wasn't hysteria that makes this. This isn't a harrowing tale. This is actually kind of a nice tale of mass faith, mass
Mass
people
faith. Yeah.
believing, mass people wanting to believe in this phenomenon,
Yeah, I guess you're
and
right.
wanting to
It is.
see this religious figure for themselves, you know?
Yeah, mass faith would be a better terminology, honestly. Well, if anybody has any further notes on it, or knows anyone that's actually experienced it, I guess it wasn't because there could be people that have actually gone and seen it in Ireland.
That's
That
true.
would be
It's so
quite cool.
recent that
Yeah.
that if anyone's listening and if you've seen or you've had similar experiences, let us know. We
Well,
want to hear
yeah.
everyone's tales of
Or if you know someone
um
that's seen it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's a really cool. That's a really cool thing, and it's actually a really nice story. We usually do,
exactly.
a lot of the stories are not so nice. So this is actually quite
Yeah, we are
nice.
called Harrowing Tales, but this is
Yeah.
actually not a harrowing tale at all. It's a nice tale. It's quite cool, and it's quite cool to see so many people react to this in the way that they did.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just it was a lot of belief, and a lot of people they went to go see for themselves as well.
Yeah. To come and have. I mean, if someone said, "Hey, these statues are moving. Do you want to come and have a look?" Hell yeah. I'll come down. Like, come
Right.
and join. I'll be like, "Yo, let's go. Let's go look at these statues. That'll be so much fun." Like, I'd be
Yeah.
so.
I mean,
This be so
there
cool.
was people. There's a lot of accounts of people who aren't actually particularly religious who would turn up, and they would also see stuff. They would
Yeah.
see the statues move, although they would see things, which is very interesting as someone who's not particularly religious like myself to
Yeah.
hear that people who also aren't would turn up
Yeah.
to the site and also see stuff.
Yeah, I'm not particularly religious either. So it's just like I would I would definitely go on board with that. That would be really cool to
Hmm.
see that. You know. Please let us know if you do have any more information regarding these moving statues. I'd love to hear anything else about it. Like, hear some more about it.
If you've got
Yeah.
your own stories of interesting interactions with faith, this is our kind of our faith episode
Yeah, I guess
on
so.
Harrowing Tales, I guess.
Yeah.
But let us know. We are interested in the subject. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's us. I'm Cal.
I'm Brent. See you
And see you
later.
later.
Bye.